So, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
It's very nice to have you here today with us.
Great being here.
Yeah. So for those who may not know you or what you do, can you give us like a brief introduction into who you are and your background in the music industry?
Okay, my name is Michael Odiong. Presently the CEO of Premier Records Limited, Nigeria's oldest record label. I'm 62 years and still counting. I'm also the co-founder of the African Music Business Roundtable. Uh, we call it a lobby group to help push for better structure and better policy making uh, platform for the music industry. I also belong to, I'm a board member of the Record Labels Proprietors Initiative, RLP, which consists of all the major record labels in Nigeria. I'm also the present chairman of the Music Publishers Association of Nigeria, NPAN, which consists of all the major music publishing companies in Nigeria. Uh, I've been in the music industry for the last 21 years, and I've contributed my own quota, and here I am,
Still contributing your own
still
quota.
contributing
Still
my own quota.
contributing. Yeah. So let's talk about Premier Records, right? You mentioned it being the oldest record label in
Yeah.
Nigeria. Um, Premier Records has been regarded as a cornerstone in the foundation of Nigeria's recorded music history. Hmm? And dating back to 1963, can you just walk us through the label's early days and how its mission has evolved over time?
Okay. Before 1963, we had a music environment that was not well coordinated. Uh, so it was more of people importing whether it's vinyls, whether it's turntables. So for you to listen to music, you'd either go to watch it live, at designated places, mostly clubs, hotels. Hotels were basically clubs of those days, and it's not like the club you have now. They were open space. Afternoon was a club day, in most of the hotels. So most of these hotels had resident bands, living in the hotel, and that was the norm for it. These resident bands turned out, as they grew, to become major legends in the music industry. So there was no proper structure as a label. Philips Electronics started as an electronics company in Nigeria when they came in, and because they were selling electronics and all that, there was the need to bridge that gap between the music listeners and the way they got the music,
The medium.
the medium in which they got the music.
Yeah.
So they decided that, okay, the best way would be to have an organized structure, a corporate body that would be able to solve this problem. And that was how Philips West Africa Records was created March 26, 1963. So arguably, it was the first record label incorporated with the CAC as at 1963. After that, I mean, many others came in. We had Niger Phones. Niger Phones was working in partnership with Philips, but Niger Phones was more of the marketing entity in the East. It was a one-man business, and it was Niger Phones that served like the talent ground to discover talents in the East and then bring to Philips West Africa Records for them to be signed on, for that bigger entity, that national recognition, international recognition. So that was how we started. And when we started, one of the first artists that we signed on was the late Bobby Benson.
Mm.
If you marry taxi driver,
Mm.
I don't care if you know, he is regarded as the father of modern high life. because arguably he would be the first to actually introduce uh, modern equipments like the guitar, like the piano, like the trumpets into high life music. Before then, conga was more prominent. You know, the modern instrumentations were limited. You know, but with the introduction of those things, Bobby Benson pioneered that, and you had a lot of artists that were under him. You had the likes of the great Dr. Victor Laya, you know, that was with him. You had the great what's his name now? I think Samak Pabot was with him. You know, many of those legends, you know, basically learned under him before they went their way. So from there on, 1963 upwards, we had a properly structured uh, uh, entity to cater for music. So people didn't need to start importing this thing. They were now being made here.
Yeah.
Artists were being signed properly, you know, and they made a living from music, you know, and they could travel abroad to go and play shows and all that. So between 1963 and the 1970s, those were the golden eras of high life music, you know, high life and funk. But funk was more for EMI, now Ivory Music, while Premier was then Phonogram Records, because we moved from Philips
Phonogram.
to Phonogram Records after the war, after the Civil War. The music industry had already gone to comatose because most of the musicians in the 60s were from the East that came to Lagos.
Yes.
So when the war started,
Mm.
they now had to go back to the East.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no nightlife in Lagos. You know, the session men were not there. The musicians, most of them had gone to the East to either go and join Biafra or, you know, had to go and meet their families and all that. So the music industry was in a disarray. In fact, Philips almost folded up.
Mm.
Then Phonogram then said, look, okay, you know what? We're going to acquire this, but let's give it a chance. By 1971, they commissioned Mr. Peter Bond, who was a British then. He was working with Polygram. Said, okay, come to Nigeria, come and see how you can help revitalize, you know, this company that is already dying. So Mr. Peter Bond came in 1971, and that was when Philips became Phonogram. So he was the first managing director of Phonogram. So when he came in 1971, he looked at the structures. Uh, Most of our legends then had even given up that with this world, music is not selling again. Let them go and find something else to do and all that. But with the emergence of Peter Bond, the first thing he did was he said he wasn't going to sign any artists, that they're already artists on ground. So it's just a matter of marketing these people to make them profitable, you know. And that was how he started the process of building another team. And before then, the issue of marketing was placed in one man's hand, which is Niger Phones. So Mr. Peter Bond came and decided that they would decentralize marketing. So that is how marketers, you hear marketers in Onitsha, in Aba, that was how they started. They were decentralized around 1971, 72 to be able to give more people opportunities to market music, you know, and that opened the space. So music started picking up. And then one of the major changes that also happened before the war, when you release music, people usually release single, you know, just like we are doing now,
Yeah.
you know. But after the war, they now realize that after a bit of research, people would rather listen to a 13-minute, 14-minute, 20-minute medley music. So you could have 4 or 5 tracks just playing non-stop. That was the norm. And they decided to say, you know what? Let's leave singles. Let's start releasing albums. That was how they started releasing albums. So that dynamics changed a lot of things in the industry. That was also when Fela actually started Afrobeat. Before that, Fela was playing jazz as an artist, then high life. Then he was known as Fela and the Kola Lobitos, and then he started Afrobeat. So we were the first record label to actually release Fela as an Afrobeat. In fact, his first album that was just uh, uh, inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, Zombie, was released by us. That was released by us. So, like that, 1970s, then by the 1980s, we opened more space for other genres of music. That's why we parade ourselves as the custodians and traditional keepers of music, cultural music heritage. We are not just a label. Because if you're looking for Akpala, you would find it there. If you're looking for Sakara, you will find it. If you're looking for Juju, you will find it. If you're looking for Fuji, if you're looking for gospel, if you're looking for pop, even Afrobeat, name the genre of music, up to the likes of Dan Mariah Joss and the rest of them. So we got artists from all over Nigeria. We were not restricted to one genre of music. Everybody that could make the catalog made, from everywhere up to the north, south, east, west, everywhere. So that's why we are regarded as the largest music catalog label in Nigeria. You know, so I mean, from the 80s, reggae took uh, took the center stage. And it was for a reason. Then everybody was talking about appetite. Reggae is known as a conscious music, to fight for the people, to be able to, stand up for the oppressed. So it was easy for reggae to take influence in the 1980s because of the apartheid era. So you had the likes of the Raskimonos, you had the likes of Mandatos, you had the likes of Oritwiliki, you had the likes, at some point, even Osonio Kosun was playing that. Yeah, you had the likes of NDKG. So reggae was a major tool to fight apartheid in the 80s, and that made it very popular in Nigeria. Also, the era of pop, the modern pop also came up. Then we had the R&B from the Western country, the Shalamars and the rest of them. The likes of Alex O, now created that pop that suited our own environments. Those danceable, nice tunes, that when you listen, you think you are listening to one Western pop artist and all that. So they created that, and that opened the road for modern pop as well. The likes of Alexito came. Then, of course, the likes of Blackie that were doing toast raga. Can I ever dance? Rosie, my friends are watching me. Rosie, then Lamfam me. Rosie, that was another hit because it had that raga feel, for the what you would call the Gen Zs in those days. It was captivating. It was something that people loved to identify with. So over the years, you see that music has evolved to what we have now. Today is Afro beats, and we do not want to argue. Let everybody enjoy Afrobeats while it lasts, but you cannot talk about the Nigerian music history without talking about Premier Records, because we are one of those major foundation layers for the music industry in Nigeria. So that's a little bit about us.
Wow, that was really like a lot. Thank you very much for sharing that. Um, I think one thing that stood out in your explanation of the times was about the golden era of the music at the time, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned artists like Rex Lawson, Chief Bobby Johnson,
Yeah,
yeah,
Bobby Benson.
Bobby Benson, Osita Osadibe, if I'm not
Yes,
wrong, at the
Osita
time.
Sadebe, yes.
Yeah, and you also mentioned that some of the things that impacted the golden era at the time was the civil war that
Yes.
happened at the time. Were there any other key moments or like key events that happened around the time that also impacted the golden era?
Um, so really it was the Civil War that had that serious impact. The Civil War had a very serious impact. Then what now helped the era come up was when there was oil boom.
Hmm, that was
So
70s.
the oil boom made things easier, and then uh, the gap, that gap, to which people recovered from the Civil War was shortened
Hmm.
because the oil boom now like placed money into people's hands. Like our former head of state said, General Yakubu Gowon. He said money was not our problem; it was how to spend it. And that was what the oil boom era did. So that significantly helped ease the pains and the issues of the civil war. And because people had money, it was easier to build. Many of the artists started coming back to Lagos. In fact, many of them even stayed back in the east because somewhere a place like Onitsha started developing where you had major hotels that had resident bands. Somewhere like Port Harcourt started developing where hotels sprang up. So it was now decentralized from not just Lagos to, you east. They could be there in the south. They were there. It wasn't everybody clumping into Lagos like it used to be, you know. So that particular this thing changed the atmosphere of the whole thing.
Now let's come to like modern day, right? It's 2025, and there's so many things happening around the world now. And I think relating to how extensive Premier Records catalog is, what would you say are some of the challenges that you currently face in protecting the rights of this older music catalog, especially in this age where digital piracy and unlicensed sampling is very, very common? So, uh, how are you solving these challenges that you're facing with these things?
So first of all, I mean, everybody recognizes that uh, this thing is worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just affect Premier Records.
Yeah.
You know, uh, Even the major labels, today are also facing the same thing. But it is easier for them because, uh, in all fairness, over the years we had dealt with physical piracy, Alaba, and we were the most hit because of the hugeness of the catalog. In fact, it ran us bankrupt.
Mm.
It ran the company bankrupt because you would see your works in the market. They are there selling, but you are not the ones doing it. You are not the one selling them.
It's like the money is not coming
The
back to
money
you.
is not coming to you, but these works are out there. How do you explain that to the artist?
Hmm.
You go and you see on Asadibe everywhere in Nigeria, and maybe you've only printed 10,000 copies, and you are seeing hundreds of thousands everywhere flooded. So you see that massive revenue was being lost,
Hmm.
and it almost ran us bankrupt. So when the era of technology came and we started having the download, and we were one of the first to actually, when it started, it was with download. We were one of the first to buy into that. As far back as 2003, 2002, 2003, we had started moving from the era of physical sales to digital through downloads. Though it wasn't paying, it took another 10 years before we started actually reaping the benefits of that, you know. But what we have been able to do is we've also come to understand the music business. We've come to understand the structure, the laws and regulations that guides the whole music business. So, for example, if you're talking of publishing, I'm very sure that 10 years ago, nobody was even thinking of publishing. You know, nobody knew what publishing was about or how one could make money out of it. But today, everybody is talking about publishing. Publishing is the main thing that people's eyes have been opened to. So when you're doing a business, you are considering masters, you're also considering publishing. But these are things that we had been, we had considered years, over 10 years ago, that when we set up our music publishing company, because we knew that the future would come with publishing being a major part of it, you know. And we've also used technology with our partners to see how we can try as much as possible to minimize online piracy. It's not easy, it's an ongoing fight. It's an ongoing process, and we will continue to fight it because it's not something that will just disappear immediately, especially when you have huge catalogs. So with time, we continue to find ways and means to see how we can curtail online piracy, but it's an ongoing process that cannot end abruptly like that.
So you talked about publishing, and I think I just quickly want to touch on the fact that recently we've seen remakes and TikTok revivals of some of these old classic records.
Yeah,
I mean, there was one from Brain Jota that
yeah,
brought back Michael Gaga's
yeah.
because of
Go, 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 go.
Go 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 Go,
Yeah,
yeah, and then recently the video also credited um Bright Chimezies
yeah.
because of English for his new record, like with you. How would you say that Premier Record is navigating licensing and collaborations with newer artists in this regard?
Okay, so I actually started this process as far back as 2011, 2012, where for me, I felt that there was a need for our legends, you know, to collaborate with the current and more vibrant artists, you know. I mean, as then we had the Two Face, many other artists were the A-list at that time, you know. So I felt that if we could get both, how do I put it, both worlds together, the old and the new, like I called it then, you know, we could create magic and then reinvent, the era of these legends, invent them to the market, reintroduce them to the market. So the first project was Dr. Victor Elia and Two Face, Baby Mida. That was my very first project that I did. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún Sisi yẹn kó má ì lọ o. Ọmọdé ń ṣe mí, Sisi mi dà. Ẹjọ ẹ bá mi sọ. So that project opened the eyes of the possibilities of working with older artists, basically, because it was a hit. It was an instant hit when it came out. First, a lot of people know Two Face as okay, a reggae and Afrobeat artist, but he gave vibe to high life with that song, you know. And then you could see that a Dr. Olaya, almost in his 80s, could still do magic. So it was a revival of sorts for Dr. Victor Olaya And it was also a bridge between the young and the old. It was easier for the younger people to connect with a Victor Laya, and they started even going to look for his old songs. So, with that, we now saw that there was a possibility that we could actually reintroduce and reinvent these older artists. And I went on to do a couple of others. I did the late Chris Agilo with Banky W, Eko Babere, Yeye mi sọ fún mi tẹ́lẹ̀ Eko Akete Ìlú Ọgbọ́n. We did a remix of that. You know, I did a remix of Berebote, Rex Lawson, with the then winner of Project Fame, I think season 5 or 6, Joffrey. You know, so all these, then I would call it experiments. You know, that some worked, some did not work, but it helped bridge that gap. So when you see what we have today, it is something that started over 12 years ago. And I felt there was the need to do that to be able to connect the younger ones with the older artists. And so far, it has, I mean, look at Gogo Gongo was a massive viral hit.
Mhm.
But imagine that we did not put the music as a user generated content. Brain Jotter wouldn't have seen the music to use.
True.
So we know that this is the future. TikTok, Instagram, even Facebook, and the rest of them. As a label, you have to get your music into those platforms because you never know what will happen. You know, you have to get your music there. So we think the future, we think the next step that will happen. That is why we are where we are today. You know, so that's the genesis, and we know that lots more are coming. Today we are talking of Bright Chimeze. I mean, I had started Bright Chimeze project since last year.
Mm.
I've worked with him over the years. So people think it's just today. No, it's something that has been we've been working on
Way
over
back.
the a period of time to be able to get to where we are. So that's it.
Thank you very much. So, like speaking about reinvention, do you think today's artists carry the same cultural weight as the legends from the Premier Golden era, or are the stakes different now?
The stakes are different, and there's that big missing link, especially in the cultural value of our music with today's generation. You know, I don't know how many artists in the next 10 years, except our cultural and traditional orientation change as a people, as Africans, you know, who would want to remix a song that talks about nakedness and drugs and alcohol? I don't think anybody would want to do that. So when you look at the lyrical content of these legends from time past, you saw that it had wisdom, it had serious moral, lyrical
Depth,
content, depth, you know. It was something everybody could listen to.
even the storytelling
Even the
that came with
storytelling,
it. Yeah.
you know, it was something that you know that it will be evergreen. In the next 50 years, people would listen to it and love it. But can we say that with the present uh, 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 crop of lyrics? Let me put it that way. You know, we can't say such. There are some songs I would not even allow my children to listen to. Maybe when they grow up, they can listen, but not when they are seated with me. You know, but back in the days, we could sit down in the parlor and listen and even watch videos with our parents because they had very clean videos that had message, and that's what makes a song of evergreen. So you ask yourself, oh, why is it that an artist will release a song after 6 months the song is nowhere to be gone?
Mm.
What is your lyrical depth? What are you talking about? It's like drugs. When you take drugs, it will wear off. When it wears off, everybody eye go clear. When you take alcohol, when it wears off, your eyes will clear. You know, so there's no way we can place today's lyrics and the lyrics from past to past in the same pedestal, culturally and traditionally. You know, they are far apart. And except we want to deceive ourselves, I don't want to deceive myself. You know, I'm in this business. You know, there's commercial aspect, but there's also that depth and cultural preservation that we must think of. You know, so that's it.
I think to be honest, like if we make music with quality and that has depth and people can actually connect to, it even expands like the longevity of these records and like gives them chance to like be sampled in years to come.
Exactly. I mean, look at Two Face, for example. You know, 20 years after, Two Face is still very relevant because of the depth of his lyrics. You know, yes, it was modern, but it's something that everybody could listen to. You understand? There are some artists that once you start playing their song, is once there's a child there, it's either you turn it off or you just, you know. So yes, you are correct. The depth of your lyrics actually determines your longevity. Whether you are going to create an evergreen or not is determined by the depth of your lyrics.
Thank you very much, sir. This has been really, really insightful. And finally, my last question for you is that with your wealth of experience, you spent the last 21 years navigating the Nigerian music scene. What advice would you offer music executives today who are trying to balance cultural preservation with commercial viability?
Um, I think when trying to balance the commercial aspect and the cultural aspect, first you must be honest with yourself as a label. What do you really want? What's your goal? There are artists that can actually give you both cultural and commercial value. So, what? How do you want to define the kind of artist you want to work with? There's the sexy, sassy type of artist for the female side. There's the macho, hunk part, for the male side. But what will determine that balance, which I still go back to, is your lyrical depth. You know, uh, there are some that it's strictly commercial. There's not you can't bend it. But in doing commercial, you should also have some aspect of that cultural value to blend so that you now serve different music listeners. There are some that just want that vibe, which has the cultural value. There are some that wants to make sense of your music. They want to be encouraged with your music. They want to learn with your music. You also give them that. So there has to be a balance with the way you deliver, to the audience. There are some artists who say, oh, okay, we want to record an album. Oh, two, three songs, commercial. Oh, this one, two, three, inspirational. Oh, this one, motivational or whatever. So you do an album for everybody
Yeah.
because it's not everybody consumes the same
Type of
kind of content. So you just have to balance that. But don't just go strictly commercial and then you leave
cultural.
the cultural value, because that cultural value actually shows you as one that wants to last, and you still value what we have as an industry.
I think for me, it's even the uniqueness that it brings into music, because music is something that is very universal, right? So, like, there's pop music everywhere in the world, there's hip hop music, there's different types of music. So, like, as an African artist or like an artist from Africa, what makes your music different is the cultural identity that it carries. That is literally what will make it stand out, like when you get to a different market. But once we leave that part out of it and we start trying to box ourselves into the restrictions that the larger commercial market have created for us just so we can sell more records.
So we even forget that when we identify our kind of music, we will always have commercial value because there are people that are fans of that music. I'll give you a very good example. Juju music, Fuji music. Today, I was Kwam One
So indeed.
is one of the biggest artists in this country. Why? Because he already has his fan base. So anytime Kwam One is releasing an album, you are sure that it's going to be a success because there's already the Fuji lovers waiting to take it. Look at the healthy rivalry between King Sunny Ade and Obe. If you did not get an Obe to your party, then you have not done anything. You have not celebrated anything. So there was competition, you know, and you were waiting. Okay, Obe said something. Oh, this thing, I think is referring to Sunny Ade. Let me hear what Sunny Ade will respond with. You know, that was healthy rivalry. You see that with those genres, with those cultural this thing, there was already commercial value because that was what made them tick. Barista in 1993 was the first African to play at the World Music Festival in Germany. And that was a Fuji artist. That was a Fuji artist. So when that's why I have a problem with Afrobeat. And I keep on saying Afrobeat is not a genre of music, it's a beat. The real genre of music is Afrobeat without an S. Because Afrobeat without an S is a genre that was created right from the 1960s. You had the likes of Orlando Julius Ekemode. You had the likes of Johnny Hastrop and the Monomonos. You had the likes of Bola Johnson. You had the likes of the Funkies. You had a lot of people playing Afrobeat. But then, at that point, they were uh, um, they were taking it as high life until Fela came, reinvented it, put in more jazz, made it longer. That is why people see Fela as the inventor of Afrobeat. But people who started playing, Fela was going to watch Orlando Julius perform. And when you listen to their albums, they were pure Afrobeat that was commercialized as high life. So you will see that that entity, that cultural value, that cultural identity helped give our artists very strong standings. But they were not recognized because everything about Nigerian music, African music, they put it then as world music. And we're like, that's an insult.
And is that not the same fate Afrobeat is suffering right now?
You sure you understand? And that's why we are trying to say, do not define us as Afrobeat. We are more than Afrobeat. Don't confine us into one category of music. It's wrong. We're larger than that. Nigeria as a country has over 200 genres of music. So why do you want to confine us into Afrobeat? So Afrobeat the biggest this thing. No. Why? Let's enjoy Fuji. Look at what Sheyi Vibes is doing. Uh, say Sheyi Vibes is mixing waka with the modern sound. Look at what Terry Akpala is doing.
Hmm.
Mixing Akpala music with this. Let us identify with our own music. If you are playing Akpala, say you are playing Akpala, even though it's modern. If you are playing Fuji, say you are playing Fuji, even though it's modern. Because that is the only way they can identify you.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned Shay Vibes because like just the other day at the office, we are having like a very interesting conversation about the last single that Shay Vibes released. So apparently it was the first time that Shay Vibes would make a record where he wasn't speaking any Yoruba on it. So like it was purely sung in English.
Mm.
And I made the case that I think, as interesting as it may sound, that they are trying to let him evolve and like capture a global audience, I think he's rubbing off of something deeper. Because if you are saying that what is going to make an African artist sell the most record is when he changes his entire lyrics to English, it's an indication of an underlying problem. Because as an African, I believe that an African artist can make a song entirely sung in Yoruba and it will sell records globally.
Let me give you an example. Nobody believed that reggae could be sung in a local dialect
Hmm.
like Bini language.
Hmm.
But Vienna broke that jinx.
Hmm.
And the person that signed it in Vienna was a white man
Hmm.
from Dutch. He listened to it and saw that there was this uniqueness using your local language to actually sing reggae. That made a lot of sense. Today, who will not remember Vienna?
Hmm.
That is innovation, that's creativity. So when they come and tell us, hey, sing in English to be able to gain worldwide
Appeal.
appeal and all that, that is untrue.
It's not.
Fela was playing everywhere in the world, France, Netherlands, 20,000, 30,000 crowd. Most of the thing, was it not in pidgin?
Hmm.
They were playing in pidgin. So why would you define us, with say we should change and play English all through? No. If you do that, you are killing the brand because that is not what people know you for. One of the major artists tried it when he signed a publishing deal. I will not mention the name, but when he released the work and it was a total failure, what happened? He went back to his original sound, and that was how he picked up. If he had continued, that would have been the end of him. So do not follow the trend and say, oh, we need to sing in English. So if we sing in English, you think the person singing hip hop, why do you think all Americans and the rest of them are coming to Africa?
Hmm.
They are tired of what they have. They want something new. They want something more innovative. So they are coming here to come and learn from us. Then we are
We
coming
are
to
trying
go
to
and take
copy
what they are
them.
rejecting. Does that make any sense?
Hmm. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I have to let you go at this time. But this has been very, very insightful, very educative. I've enjoyed every bit of this. Thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
spending
much.
this time with
Thank you.
us. I appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Hi, my name is Michael Odiong, and I've just had an amazing time with Mdundo Radio. Fantastic time. Great. Thank you so much.